Good evening. It's 5:26 p.m. We will join the city council meeting as soon as it is launched. I put the link in the description there. I hope all of you can join this evening and make your public comment. It is budget time. So tonight is November 2nd, 2022. There's public comment tonight regarding the budget. Next Wednesday, the 9th, will be a study session, which you can attend. Those things are very important, especially during budget time. So if you can attend, please do and share back out. And then the 16th is the last time to make public comment. So the next 3 weeks are really important. We also have an election on the next Tuesday, the 8th. So a lot going on right now. So please stay diligent, be resilient, whatever your issues are. Your issue needs that resiliency and that voice right now. So I encourage you to do so. So as I said, we'll be joining City Council as soon as they launch here. Please do keep in mind we will be covering all of these here for you. I don't know if they are simultaneously broadcasting the study sessions. So I'm not sure about that. If they do, then we will broadcast that as well. And if my schedule frees up, I will try to be at some of the workshops as they go forward. All right, so they should be getting started here probably in about 60 seconds. There was an email that went out to folks to help gather your thoughts, and you can use that any way that you want. Always good to practice your 3 minutes, especially if you have a lot that you want to say. 3 minutes goes by pretty quickly. Um, so I try to practice what I'm going to say, try to keep it short. I actually do tend to not use all of my time. And that's just by design for me, but sometimes that is necessary. Sometimes that is necessary. All right. Okay. Yeah, just hang in there. It is 5:30, so definitely should be kicking in here any second. Mhm. All right. I was going to give you some music. And of course, as soon as I do that, undoubtedly, they will launch the meeting. to the programming notes, I will be airing the interview with the Bremerton High School girls volleyball team. Probably later on this evening. We'll take a slight break, enjoy some dinner, hopefully. I've been in this chair all day.
Recording in progress. Now we do have some of the work that's going on. Obviously, starting with rental assistance, federal funds that came in during COVID. We've briefed you a couple different times, finance community development on where we wanted to have those funds set aside. We have 100,000 rental assistance. Of course, the home buy.
utility funds. The last one was Thursday, October 27th, and included council questions, deliberations, and adjustments. The 2023 proposed budget is posted on the city's website along with the presentations from the 3 budget workshops. The website location is listed here on the slide. The final budget hearing is scheduled for Wednesday, November 16th. Following that hearing, the council will consider adoption of the 2023 proposed budget. Governmental funds. Fund types include general fund, which is the city's primary operating fund, used to account for all revenues, expenditures not accounted for in another fund. This fund includes police and fire, community development, parks, municipal court, city council, mayor's office, finance, and legal. Special revenue funds are used to account for proceeds of specific revenue sources that are restricted for specific purposes other than debt service or capital projects. This fund includes street, contingency, lodging tax, parking, community development block grant, police special projects, public television, conference center, and 1% for the arts. The third category is debt service funds, which these funds are used to account for governmental funds. These are debt services for our local governmental bonds. They include the 2010 UTGO, Governmental Center LTGO, 2015 Public Safety Bond, and 2019 Refunding LTGO. The last category of governmental funds is the Capital Improvement Fund. They are used to account for major construction or major acquisition of facilities or other capital assets. This fund category includes general government capital improvement, parks, facilities, construction, transportation, capital projects, fire, public safety, affordable housing. Residential street and sidewalk fund was eliminated in 2021. Proprietary funds are generally self-supported activities. Enterprise funds are made up of our water utility operations, water capital, wastewater utility operations, wastewater capital, stormwater utility operations, stormwater capital, Gold Mountain Golf Complex, and utility debt reserve. Other proprietary funds are internal service funds, which serve internal functions for the city and include our fleet maintenance, fleet reserves, information technology, risk management, employment security, and accumulated leave liability. This proposed budget authorizes 402.37 full-time equivalent employees and includes total personnel costs of just over $56 million. Summary of proposed changes in staffing are listed here and equals 6.82 increase FTEs. There is 1 FTE increase for courts, 1 increase for information technology, 1 for the mayor, 0.66 seasonal conversion to 1 FTE increase in parks, 2 FTE increases in engineering, 1 increase in finance for utility billing, 2 position changes in forestry with 0 change in total FTE, 1.32 seasonal conversion to 1 FTE increase for stormwater, 1.2 seasonal conversion to 1.0 FTE increase in streets. Summary of the citywide budget includes revenue budget of $150 million, expenditure budget of $167 million, and an ending fund balance of $58 million. General fund includes a beginning fund balance of $16.6 million, revenues of $51.5 million, expenditures of $57.9 million, with projecting an ending fund balance of $10.3 million, which is equivalent to 17.8 ending fund balance for the general fund. This is equivalent to about 60 days reserves, or 17%, which is the national best practice. Per city policy, the minimum fund balance is 8.5%. With citywide expenditures, including fund balances, the city has an overall decrease of 10% compared to last year's budget. There is an increase in personnel. This change includes cost of living increases for all employees. There's also an increase in medical and dental benefits. The change in debt service is related to the utility fund's debt services, and there's normal fluctuations year to year with capital. Citywide expenditure comparison year after year and a budget comparison to 2021 actuals. As compared to last year, excluding fund balances, citywide budget has a decrease to expenditures of 11%. General fund expenditure budget comparison to last year. This shows the total difference in percentage change by expense category. The city's general fund has an overall decrease of just under 5% compared to last year's budget. With ARPA funding removed, the difference between last year and this year is a decrease of 11% in supplies and services. Capital expenditures tend to have the normal fluctuations year to year. This pie chart shows the percentages of citywide revenue sources. Charges for services remaining the largest revenue category at 39%. Taxes is the second largest revenue source at 30%. Transfers and other at 21%. Intergovernmental at 8%. Licenses, permits, and fines, and forfeits at 1%. This bar graph here shows the citywide revenue comparison year after year and budget comparison to 2021 actuals. Citywide revenue budget has a decrease of 9% compared to last year's budget. The city's estimated revenues continue to exceed projections for most categories. General fund revenue comparison by revenue category, looking at the 2022 budget to the proposed 2023 budget. The general fund proposed revenue is just under $52 million, with taxes being the largest revenue source category. Sales tax revenue for 2023 is projected just under 6% over 2022's amended budget. The general fund overall revenues has an increase of $2.4 million or 5% compared to 2022's amended budget. This graph here shows 2023 proposed budgeted general fund revenue taxes by type of tax. Taxes represent 71% of the general fund revenues, which includes a minimum increase of 1% compared to last year's. Sales tax is the largest percent of the total revenue at 33%. Property tax is the second largest category at 31%, and utility tax is 28%. Business and occupation tax make up 8%. B&O tax does assume the proposed exemption increase to $1,020,000. This slide shows property tax overview. This year, the implicit price deflator is at 6.457%, which allows a full 1% increase to the city's levy limit, limited by statute to 1% increase or inflation, plus new construction and annexation. EMS levy is also limited by statute to 38 cents per 1,000. Voter approved special bond levies, like the 2 public safety bonds that are currently outstanding. Council must formally establish the annual property tax levy amount as stated earlier by ordinance and communicate such levy to the city assessor no later than November 30th of the year prior to collection. There is a 16% increase on the current estimated assessed value. The table to the right demonstrates the estimated levy limit. As you can see, 2022 general property tax levy it was $8.42 million, a 1% increase of just over $84,000, new construction of $296,000, and any canceled tax refunds that are outstanding at $55,000, bringing the total 2023 estimated levy limit to just under $8.86 million. The EMS levy of 38 cents per 0.38 cents per thousand is just under 2.27 million. Estimated total levy of 11.1 million. Voter approved public safety bonds total $1,450,000, $900,000 for 2010 UTGO refunding bonds, $550,000 for 2015 fire public safety bonds. General rates and fees. These are amended on an annual basis and are adopted by ordinance. Utility rates for 2023 include total increase to customers of $6.12 as compared to 2022. In this budget, we are proposing 3.75% increase in water and wastewater, and there is a 13% increase in stormwater utility rates for 2023, but an annual increase of 8.75% thereafter. These rates support expenditures for operations and maintenance, capital programs, and debt service. This table shown here is from our dashboard. The overall net change on our utility bill reflects just over 5% increase for 2023. For enterprise funds, the estimated average monthly total is $122.35. For low-income senior and disabled citizens who may receive 40.85% discount, the average monthly total is $72.37. Again, these assume the rate of 3.75 increases for water and wastewater and 13 increase for stormwater. This table here is a utility rate comparison to our neighboring jurisdictions. As you see here on the graph, our rates remain below the 2022 compared jurisdictions. All right, fiscal year 2023 proposed budget. This is a recap for the general fund. New programs or new funding requests for the general fund total $1 million. There's $12,000 for city attorney and HR for a salary survey, software, and fee increases. $19,000 in council for additional REACT trainings and professional services for public restrooms. $343,000 in courts for one new position. Supplies and services increase that are all grant funded. $2,000 in finance for salary surveys. $156,000 in the mayor's budget for one FTE add for the diversity, equity, inclusion manager. $53,000 in parks for converting 0.66 seasonal staff to one regular laborer. $437,000 in public works for two FTE adds in engineering that have net general costs of $71,000. There's also a green solar energy study and an EV charging station and facilities, net cost to the general fund of $45,000. With all these new requests, the general fund has an estimated ending fund balance $10.3 million, or just under 17.8% of total expenditures. Proposed budget has increases in utility rates, as we've been discussing. 3.75 for water and wastewater, 13 for stormwater. Proposed utility capital program expenditure budget is approximately $20 million. Capital improvement program for governmental funds has a proposed expenditure budget of approximately $14 million. 11 million of that is for transportation. Totals by fund for the utility capital programs and governmental capital program are also listed on the slide. All right, next steps. Open public hearing tonight for revenue sources and one of two public hearings on the 2023 citywide budget. Council will consider adoption for the fiscal year 2023 budget following a public hearing on Wednesday, November 16th. With that, I will turn it back to Council President. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The purpose of the public hearing is to accept public comment, and no action will be taken tonight by the council. Public hearing is open. Does any member of the public wish to comment on this item?
And I have to say thank you to the council for having an in-person meeting again. I mean, it's so important that our elected representatives see the people in person and not do this by Zoom. Now, I realize we're doing more of a hybrid, and that does bring a lot of folks into the meetings. But again, thank you for finally having these meetings in person, because then we get a look you in the eye and tell you, no, we don't want you to increase our taxes. no, we don't want you to adopt this budget. We want you to go back and rethink about this budget because there are things in it that we don't need. And there are things in it that should be, that we absolutely do need. But the people think that this should be rethought through and redeliberated. These increases in FTEs are unnecessary. The FTE that we have for that the mayor is proposing at $150,000 is frankly over the top. And our REACT committee actually voted not to have this thing. And when we talk about putting the cart before the horse, when the council president talks about making sure we put the money in the budget so that we can do these things, I would ask you to not put the money in the budget because we shouldn't be doing this thing because it's something that it contradicts state law and it contradicts federal law. When we add in these positions that go through to expressly hire people based on their appearance, it's an affront to our society. We don't do that. We don't hire people based on what they look like. We hire people based on the content of their character and their ability to do things. And we've seen that. We've seen that time and time again. And I would strongly recommend that we take that out of the budget and apply it into a program that we sorely need more of. And that's working on stuff for our folks who are underprivileged, those folks who are homeless, those folks that we see in our society every day that can be helped by this council and by the city. And adding in this management position that pays in six-figure range doesn't help these folks get off the street, doesn't help these folks move upward in the economy. It doesn't help them become members of society that have that value-added sense that reestablishes their ability to work within the constructs of our society and make our community better. It only reiterates that they will be downtrodden and that they will be held down and oppressed.
This is going to sound strange, but I would really like to see you increase the FTEs in public works. Field crews. Part of it is I think we can save an amazing amount of money if we have our own staff out there doing the minor road repairs that we pay contractors huge amounts for. So if we have some people that we can train properly to do pavement repairs on streets that we have given up on pretty much, so that then we can have a contractor come in after the fact and do chip sealing or microsurfacing or whatever is appropriate. So I would hope that we could get more FTEs, not in the office, but working out in the field conditions. Thank you.
All right. Does Public Works want to just say a couple things on that? Or
and with our field crews is for our street crew, we're at capacity, right? And we prioritize the work that we deliver. About half of our staff time goes towards operations and maintenance and preventive maintenance. And then we have a prioritization order beyond that. We have some flexibility beyond that. And so we have there's a very healthy and appropriate approach towards sidewalks. I think that's very good. But when it comes to pavement preservation, we're not really moving hard. So that's what I wanted to say with that. And we have our staff work as much time as they have on pavement pavement preservation issues until we have no more staff time. So that's all I would say about that.
all right, is there anybody else for public comment? Oh, we can go online next. So we will go to Jim McDonald.
Thank you, President. Generally, I'm in favor of the revenue pieces of the budget. I know Mayor Wheeler was on council, as well as Council Member Younger during the 2008-2009 Depression era, and where the city was in a very difficult position of cutting staff and borrowing actually to pay salary from the public works fund. So I think this budget is primarily a conservative revenue budget. I'm always concerned when you hire new people, just because having lived through that, it's a horrible experience, and I hope you don't have to go through it yourself. The thing is about the utilities, they are standalone funds. I do think, it's really important we maintain that, because I do think one of the things we do lack, whether it's in the parks department or streets and sidewalks, is we can use a lot more maintenance in those areas. We have some wonderful facilities, but if we don't keep them up, they just keep deteriorating. So my general message is I think I'm in favor of the revenue part of this budget, and I thank you guys for your service. Thanks.
Thank you. And now we will go to Roy Runyon.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay, well, just one last thing I want to say about the diversity, equity, inclusion manager. Having read the job description and knowing what our state law is, and by the way, I think the passage of our inclusion of that position with description is a threat to democracy. A number of years ago, the citizens of Washington State passed Initiative 200, which prohibited discrimination against or the granting of preferential treatment to any individual or group on the basis of race, sex, color, ethnicity, or national origin in the operation of public employment, public education, or public contracting. That was codified, that initiative was passed by the people and was reaffirmed several election cycles ago, and was codified in RCW 49.60.400. So I don't quite understand the desire to try to undermine or go around the will of the people. That is anti-democratic, small d democratic, by the way. So on that basis, you should remove that position from the budget. The second item, utility tax rates. So you're going to maintain the tax rates that you had last year. And let me remind you and remind the public. The rates are as follows. Now, these are utility tax rates charged on city-owned utilities, water, wastewater, and stormwater. For water, it's 15.5%. For wastewater, 20%, and stormwater, 20%. I'm going to call that Eric Younger's tax, because now those revenues from stormwater tax and stormwater are now going into the Transportation Capital Fund. So you can cut those in half. You can make it less expensive to live, to survive in Bremerton for those who are least fortunate. You can make it easier for rental property owners to not have to raise their rental rates. You folks are creating inflation. This is what inflation is. Every time you create additional costs, that's what it is. So you're not just reacting, you are part of the problem, based on the way you budget. Also, I want to point out that, the ending fund balance, I always talk about this, so we're exceeding the ending fund balance by just a little bit. The ending fund balance is our money. It belongs to the taxpayer. So by exceeding the ending fund balance, and I think last year we exceeded it quite a bit, that's really not appropriate. So you guys need to sharpen up. The conference center, we're still providing a subsidy of $250,000 a year, but I noticed in the fee table, you're not authorizing an increase to the fees for use of the conference center. That doesn't make any sense. That operation is a business operation. The taxpayers of the city and this county have funded that. I was a former member of the Kitsap Public Facilities District. And so, The idea was to provide seed funding so it stands on its own. And you folks are continuing, it's an addiction. You know, they've gotten used to that $250,000 a year subsidy. And you need to wean them of that. And lastly, I'm concerned, you know, when I left office in 2015, I believe the FTE count for the city was 354. And now we're looking at almost 403 FTEs. And yes, I saw the comparison of population, so there's been population growth in Bremerton. But that doesn't mean the city government is any more effective. And when you add positions that add no value, like a diversity, equity, inclusion manager, you know, that confirms my concern. We're adding
Mr. Runyon, we're over time.
Thank you very much. Anyway, so I will be at the next hearing.
And folks can always email into the city with any other concerns or questions. Yes. Oh, thank you. Next, we'll go to Marwan Cameron.
Good evening, council. Good evening, mayor. I just wanted to respond to the comments that I've heard this evening in response to the DE&I manager. Back in 2021, Kitsap Public Health District adopted a formal resolution declaring racism a public health crisis. I think we can hear from these statements tonight. This is indeed necessary and critical for our democracy. If you have been following what's been going on, our Bremerton High volleyball girls were in a match in Mason County High School and came across such an incident where adults put hands on our Bremerton children. And unfortunately, the report that came out in the Sun did not interview or quote any of the victims, but yet just did their investigation on the accused. This is problematic, historic, current, and prevalent. We can look at the hiring practices in the shipyard and many of our major employers here, and look at who's in these different positions and how they get into these positions. Anyway, this issue is critical, and I think if Kitsap County is to thrive and go forward in the city of Bremerton, this is absolutely necessary. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. And next, we will go to Christy Lyson.
Third time's a charm. So I want to begin by saying I'm thankful for the public hearing around the budget. I appreciate that and our ability to make public comment. What I would like maybe in the future, next year, is if the council would consider having more of open dialogue back and forth so that the citizens, taxpayers, can actually ask questions and get them answered, because I consider myself a reasonably educated person with higher education, and someone who manages multi-million dollar budgets and develops multi-million dollar budgets myself at the agency I work at. And I've been trying to self-study the budget documents, and because of a lot of acronym use and a lot of other unfamiliar terms to me, it's just very hard to decipher kind of all the elements of this budget. Particularly, I'm looking for where are our most vulnerable citizens, our unhoused citizens, particularly in the downtown core. Where are the services that are that should be there, getting paid for? Where's the funding for those services? I know I and many other community members have been, for at least the last 6 months, have been bending your ears about the need for toilets and other basic hygiene needs to be met for our unhoused folks downtown, particularly, and on MLK Way, that area by Salvation Army. And I still don't see any specific funding related to meeting the needs of those. I appreciate hearing the mayor's report. The part of it I did hear about more money for affordable housing. I appreciate that. I don't want it to go unnoticed or think that I'm not recognizing that. And at the same time, these folks that are downtown, many of whom have been, somewhat banned from the shelter services, they are so far removed from being anywhere near being able to benefit from the affordable housing projects, which are also in the future anyway. There's just a whole huge crack in our safety net for our most vulnerable citizens here that's not being met. I read through page 19 and 20, which are the strategic priorities of the city council and mayor, which was on which the budget has been based. And I could not find anywhere in any of the strategic priorities where our most vulnerable citizens and homeless, there's not even the word homeless in the entire 2 pages of strategic priorities, which is just unfathomable to me, how caring for our most vulnerable people who are dying, who are veterans living on the street, how we're not caring for these elderly people, very unhealthy people who cannot take care of themselves.
We're at time.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I will actually let you know that when Ms. Weichel commented about the funds going into the council budget, the council put funds in their budget sort of as a placeholder, but to try to find a solution for the restrooms, downtown. I know not far from your neighborhood, so we don't necessarily have the perfect solution, but we're going to try to figure that out, and then probably just move the funding where it needs to go to pay for it. All right, next we'll go to Joe Walter here in person.
Joe Walter again. Speaking to the toilet question, I just want to thank Councilmember Coughlin for attending the meeting last Wednesday, where we tried to just focus on the most basic needs of our most vulnerable Bremertonians. And very grateful that there's been ongoing conversation among you about money that you just described. Again, I'm wondering about the staffing question. Who do we talk to as the details get worked out? And there's lots of remaining questions. It's wonderful to put aside a pot of money, but we don't know when and how it will be spent. I'm wondering too, one of the things that came up at the meeting was about public toilets downtown generally. How about our visitors? Somebody talked about having been in Europe recently where they paid for public toilets. Anybody, we're interested in tourism here. So where do people get to go? Do they have to go to a restaurant somewhere in order to find a toilet? Maybe we can, think long term about how we're going to get public toilets installed that would also serve our unhoused people. Yes, to the idea of a Tsarina, the Kitsap Housing and Homelessness Coalition. Is that what you were referring to? Yes, but again, I just think seriously about if we're paying for full-time people for the help with the trash problem downtown. I just think that it's a really useful consideration that we need a person where we wouldn't be thinking that it becomes political when we call and ask for information because we don't have to talk to an elected official, but rather a staff person. And the last thing is personal. Who's the aesthetics department? Could we please get new draperies in here? Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, I don't know if there's anything we can address directly on that.
I do know the answer to the drapery question, though.
Go ahead.
So if you'll indulge me, when this place was built in 2003, these were actually designed by a famous designer, these drapes, with a Bremerton tie. I forgot the gentleman's name. Lori, do you remember? Extremely famous guy, and Jane, you were around here too. Very expensive at the time. Yeah, it was a large amount of money as part of tenant improvements, but just a little background on that.
Thank you. All right. Next, we're going to go to Zoom and Mr. Kia Long.
I wanted to touch bases on what Marwan Cameron said. Racism has been around, and we need something to be done, especially with what happened in Mason County. And two other people touched bases on the bathroom thing in downtown, and something good is happening in Bremerton where people are feeding the homeless. If something can be done on the budget to help the homeless, and where food other than helping the homeless, that would be good. People are doing in the trenches. Bailey Tupai and his organization. I want to just give touch on that. So thank you.
Thank you. All right. Is there anybody else for public comment? Okay, so this was for both for the revenue side and then the actual proposal.
Well, yeah, we'll need to close this one and then reopen the second public hearing to close.
All right. Seeing none, I close the public hearing. And then I guess we need to reopen it. So this is the public hearing to accept public comment. No action will be taken by the council until November 16th. We're open for public comment. And this one's just, again, still the budget. We just did it all together. Are there any more comments? Okay. So Mr. Marwan Cameron.
Good evening again, Council. Thank you again for this opportunity to speak. What I wanted to do was just thank the Council for their work that you did last week. The event was well attended, also by your Councilman Coughlin. So shout out to him. And thank you for the work on earmarking some money for the bathrooms downtown. It's a great start. I think we all agree it's not enough, but I think it's important that we recognize and applaud positive direction movements. And so I just wanted to say that we acknowledge that. The other thing that I wanted to mention was just a part of the mayor's budget that he shared in the beginning. And in that, 100,000 was earmarked. Let me grab it here. Substandard housing displacement program and development for 2023 for $100,000. When you consider first, last, and deposit, and let's say rent for a year for someone that we're trying to stabilize at $1,500 average rent, you're talking about quite a bit of money that's not really going to help really impact a lot of people. So I would just ask the city and the mayor to really take a look at the budget and see if we can't do more in regards to the unhoused. I mean, many of these things that I see here, weatherization, home ownership, all of those things are good and necessary, and I applaud all of that. But we really need to have some dedicated focus on the unhoused. And while the breakfast last week was centered around ML King, there are unhoused all throughout this county and throughout Bremerton. And so that's just what I want to add there. Thank you.
Thank you. I will let Mr. Mayor, do you want to comment on that real quick? Oh, sorry. Thank you. Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, thank you, Marwan, for your comments. Thank you, Council President.
that funding is set aside to help with relocation if somebody who is lower income has been displaced for a couple of reasons. One, their house or apartment's been converted, and so that's being maybe torn down or extensively remodeled and is going off the market, coming back in a different way. Or if a tenant just decides that their living conditions are so bad that they report to the city, and then the city goes in and actually has to enforce code, which we know also creates a safe, healthy, livable environment. If that tenant is forced to relocate, these funds are meant to help with that reestablishment of a home. We have significant funds in place. You saw 800,000 earmarked through federal funds that we received through COVID, just for longer term sustainability. It's not meant to actually create an entire housing or a rental assistance program where it covers 100% of rental assistance. That's a different type of program. This is meant for folks who currently have housing and or need to be relocated for a couple of reasons that are out of their control. If they qualify within the income qualification, we help. So, and there's a lot to this. So, yeah, that's it in a nutshell. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thanks for being patient, Ms. Walter.
Thank you again. Very briefly, Joe Walter. I just want to amplify what Christy suggested about a town hall type budget meetings. Clearly, it's too late for this year, but I know everybody's about transparency, accountability, and could we set something up for next year where there'd be a real question and answer opportunity with the public? Thanks.
Just a little background. I work at an agency where we help people get jobs. We help people with free education, computer classes, GED, English as a second language, and so forth. I do encounter some people that are homeless or formerly homeless. For example, we got some clients from Salvation Army. We got one client from Denver Place. We got one client from Elmira, gets up mental health. And Mr. Mayor, I really appreciate your explanation earlier in your report about where the money is going. I just have a suggestion that perhaps we can see how many people are helped in these various agencies. So, for example, we know there's 70 people housed at Denver Place. If you could have some numbers that just reflect the people that are helped, I think that would also be helpful besides just the money. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to go back online. We're going to go to Mr. Roy Runyon.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thanks. Okay. I like the idea of maybe some budget workshops. I suggested to my council member that we have, I try to find out when the next district meeting is. That would be a great venue in all the districts for council members to sponsor some presentations and discussion. And we don't get that. So I think that's a really good idea. And we can get down to the nitty gritty and we can explain some of these things and their positions and have a dialogue, instead of polarization. It seems like between the media and politicians, you institutions want to keep people separated. So let's bring it together in some budget workshops in the future where we actually talk back and forth within a time frame, a limit. Thank you.
And then we'll stay on Zoom and go to Christy Lysenberg.
I promise to be brief this time. I just caught the tail end of the mayor's report where he was presenting about the 1/10 of 1% sales tax revenue. I'm not sure, some sort of tax revenue and then there were specific categories of how that money could be spent. And he said he would be looking for community involvement. I don't know how many community people, but I think that would be a great opportunity since vulnerable people serving vulnerable population was one of the categories of where that money could be spent, that might be a very good opportunity, and that's a large amount of money to help the homeless in our community, especially with meeting those most basic needs. I would love to be considered to be on a committee, and I know that there are many other people in our community who'd be very interested in serving to give input on where that money could be best put. Thank you.
All right, I'll have Mayor Wheeler come up and just comment on that.
I'm glad you, Christy, I'm glad you brought that up. When I gave the report, I didn't mention that the funding could be used for something similar to a shelter. So it's a considerable amount. All Bremertonians are paying into it. This is the latest briefing I've received from the county as we're working together on this. So it should be considered. Obviously should be considered in this. The committee work will be very important. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up.
Again, this is the 1/10 of 1% that the county added to the sales tax, and but it gets distributed back out through the entire county, including the city of Bremerton. Mr. Simpson.
Thank you, Council President. So I'm Mike Simpson, District 6. So I remind the council that that sales taxes, even if it's 1/10 of 1%, are regressive, and they hurt folks in the community disproportionately who are on the lowest end of the income scale. If by comparison, as the mayor stated, this would cost each resident of the city of Bremerton $16 a piece. That's a hot meal for those that are on the lowest end of the economic scale. And taking food out of their mouths, I think is a bad idea. We can find money in the budget to take care of these programs without having to increase that, without having to add in that 1/10 of 1% that affects everyone, especially those that are on the lower end of the economic scale. Kind of keying in on the points that have been added in before, having a town hall meeting, and I think the appropriate point would be where we do our budget adjustment each year. We do that twice a year that we do the budget adjustment. Having the town hall meetings then, when we talk about how we adjust our budget for the year that we're working in, it's a great place, a great segment where we can add in and do the town hall meeting and get more participation from folks in our community to actually weigh in on what our needs are in the community for the budget to happen. Because, as you know, representative government represents all of us, and it's there to serve us, not to be our master.
Thanks. Just to clarify, the city did not levy the 1/10 of 1%. The county did. I guess we could say we didn't want to take the money to help our most vulnerable folks, but I think it's a good idea to utilize that. Some of the folks who have asked for town hall, feel free to message up me or anybody. I'm not sure why people don't feel like this environment is providing you an opportunity to ask questions. Everything we do is open to the public. Now with the technology we've added, it's all recorded. So my council, I think, would agree it's a very time-consuming, event. And so I'd like just to make. I think everybody has heard that, and we will see what we can possibly do. But this is literally public comment. Ask a specific question. I'll call staff up to answer it. Jake.
And it was council members talking to each other, and the mic system was horrible. I could not hear hardly anything. I couldn't ask a question then, and I don't have a computer at home. I have a phone. So it's really difficult to read the entire budget and pull everything out. So I think if we had town hall type budget deliberations where maybe we pass out on paper, different funds, and people could raise their hand and say, what's this, what's that? And right now, I mean, we have what, 25 people in the audience and maybe 100. Lucky I'm back, and we're 42,000 people in this town, and this really doesn't work for most people.
Thank you. Thank you. Nope. All right. All right. Anybody else for public comment? And I see that. Okay. Oh, all right. Seeing none, I close public hearing. You can make a comment.
Thank you. So, thank you, Mr. Rogalowski, for the suggestions and for all those who are interested in the town hall. This is what the proposed budget packet looks like. And I got this at a special request from finance because it's not even printed out for the council members normally, because this is how many pages it is. I'm happy to loan you my packet to look at during this session, but I carry these around with me. I even carried them on a business trip with me, but I'm going to loan this to you to take a look at now if you'd like. Or anybody else who would like to look at it. I will need it.
You guys can talk after the meeting. All right, we're moving on to item C.
Item 6C, public hearing on resolution number 3353, approving the 2023 Community Development Block Grant Home Funding recommendations for inclusion in the 2023 CDBG Home Action Plan. Presenter tonight is Community Development Block Grant Administrator Sarah Lynn. Hey, everybody.
Just make sure you're talking into the microphone.
Thank you, council members, council president, Mayor Wheeler, for the opportunity to speak this evening. I'm really excited to bring forward the 2023 CDBG Home Funding recommendations for insertion into the 2023 Annual Action Plan. Information about CDBG: we received funds from the Department of Housing and Urban Development as an entitlement community. CDBG funds can be used to address a wide range of community needs, including acquisition and rehabilitation of housing, public facilities and infrastructure improvements, economic development activities, and services for low-income and special needs populations. Back in July, the council passed the annual policy plan, which outlined our funding priorities for the program year and included other important application information fees wishing to apply for CDBG. The application review cycle ended on August 31st, and those recommendations are what is being proposed to council this evening. I'm very sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have my clicker. CDBG program has a number of regulatory requirements. All activities must be eligible, meet a national objective, and one of our 5-year consolidated plan priorities. There is a 20% set aside for administrative costs, the maximum 15% allowed for public services. That is not a requirement. Capital projects have several other requirements which applicants are made aware of when they apply, including environmental reviews, federal prevailing wage, procurement standards, and others. Our applications are reviewed and scored by the Project Review Committee, which is made up of city staff, representatives from the Planning Commission, City-Council, and our community members. These are always very challenging deliberations, and I'm very thankful for everybody's time. I know our committee put a lot of time and thought into these decisions. They're, as expected, was far greater requests than what we expect to receive, and I know everyone again, put a lot of time and effort into these deliberations. Our online application was open June 30th through July 28th, and during the month of August, our Project Review Committee was able to review and score each eligible application. The committee met on August 29th to discuss their initial thoughts and rank projects by score, and applicant interviews and final committee deliberations took place on August 31st. The committee's funding recommendations, which is in the packet as Exhibit A, were released for a 30-day comment period beginning September 12th and closed on October 13th. A legal ad was placed in the Kitsap Sun, and the recommendations and call for comments were also posted on the city's website and sent out in an e-news flash. We did not receive any written comments during that period, and there was also a legal ad and an e-news that was sent out for tonight's hearing. This was taken directly from our policy plan. It gives a breakdown of the available funds. We begin with the estimated funding based on the previous year of $400,000 plus $5,000 estimated for 2023 program income. There's a 20% that is again set aside for grant administration and an allowable 15% for public services if the project review committee recommends a public service project. So our total available for projects is $324,000. The committee's scoring and deliberations resulted in 4 of our 7 applicants being selected for funding. Again, these were difficult decisions based on the amount of grant dollars being requested versus how much we anticipate receiving. Project Review Committee recommended fully funding Kitsap Community Resources request for weatherization and their BEST program. The remaining funding was recommended for City of Bremerton Public Works program improvements and renovations to the YWCA of Kitsap County's headquarters building. And we'll just go into a brief description of each project. The Project Review Committee has recommended funding improvements to the YWCA of Kitsap County's headquarters at $83,000 and requests that funding be utilized to first address the water intrusion issue, which would impact any other building improvements that they choose to make. The YWCA of Kitsap County has had its administrative offices in Bremerton for over 75 years, and it houses all YWCA programs, including housing case management, legal advocacy, domestic violence support groups, and others. Building improvements detailed in their application include replacement of exterior siding, windows, doors, and other exterior improvements, which they plan to complete in addition to the primary concern. Next, the City of Bremerton Public Works Department, through their pedestrian priority network, identified curb ramp improvements by avenue between 5th and 12th Street. $141,000 is recommended for 5 of those sites on the east side of High Avenue and the 2 curb ramps adjacent to Kiwanis Park. This project will create new curb ramps that improve and connect pathways along High Avenue, building upon the ADA accessible infrastructure put in place by a previous CDBG award. This is also in alignment with the city's ADA transition plans and goals and will improve ADA access to transit, city park, schools, and improve walkability. The Kitsap Community Resources, the weatherization program, has been a successful grant recipient in previous years. $50,000 will benefit weatherization and minor home repair services for 6 homes, both owner-occupied and rental units. Within the City of Bremerton, the funds will specifically be used for contractor labor and materials to install weatherization measures. Health and safety improvements are also covered. And also through Kitsap Community Resources, the BEST program, which is designed for low-income individuals and those with limited funds who are interested in mastering skills necessary to start or expand their own business. The program-wide goal of this program is to assist 30 new businesses and create 15 new jobs. In addition to the 8-week business training program, BEST offers support for their graduates after going through the program, and this aspect was a new thing that the Project Review Committee received publicly. And then finally, in addition to the Project Review Committee's recommendations, we also asked the council to review Bremerton home funding recommendations, which is selected by the county's review committee. The city has a consortium with Kitsap County for home funds, and our share of home funds is based on a percentage allocation determined by HUD. There's a single applicant this year, Kitsap Community Frameworks, for their down payment assistance program. They are awarded their full requested amount of $222,487,000. which will benefit homebuyers with up to 20% down payment assistance. In this program, the funding that folks receive in this program has 0 interest for the first 5 years, and no payments are required until sale of the home or until the 30-year term expires. In total, for previous awards, Community Frameworks has received funding totaling, including this, almost $800,000. And lastly, as a part of our regulatory requirements, we must build contingencies into the committee's funding recommendations. And because we work with estimates, the committee has recommended the following contingencies. If the entitlement is less this year, a reduced amount would be awarded to the Public Works Infrastructure Project. And if the city receives more than the estimated amount, the additional allocation would be awarded to the YWCA up to their initial ask of $91,000 and then to the first.
Okay, thank you. The purpose of this public hearing is to accept public comment and for the council to take action following the discussion. The public hearing is open.
I have a question how Community Frameworks is actually to be able to fund 20% down payment for more than one house. The type of, there's A, no houses for sale, and B, the average price is well over $450,000. So it seems like there may be some other programs, and maybe when the economy and housing market recovers, maybe that's the time to fund them, but there's nothing, they're not moving any houses.
Sarah, do you want to comment on that? Or
selected through the county's review committee, and this is our share of that money. So the total amount that we would receive benefit-free households. But I know it's Community Frameworks on their website has a lot of good information about specifically how many folks they've helped and get into.
next we'll go to Zoom and go with Mr. Runyon.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I'm really exercising my voice to my throat, so things are clearing up. There's so many needs in our city, of course, we can't meet them all. I'm heartened to see that the KCR Best program is fully funded for $50,000. I prefer to see more, but if that's what they requested, that's what they got. I don't know if it's part of the national and therefore our plan. There needs to be created a funding for providing financial education for low-income citizens. You know, I know a lot of people are struggling, but you know, folks who are working poor, who may never learn how to handle money, just basic stuff, and then some of the more advanced stuff, you actually prepare for retirement and those challenges. Regarding community frameworks and the dollar amounts, yes, speaking to the cost of housing, it's even though we're seeing a slight pause in the real estate market, we still have a major shortage of housing. You know, the council passed with encouragement from the planning commission and the citizens changes to the ADU, accessory dwelling unit part of the code. I think there's an opportunity there to work with property owners, community frameworks, with the funding source to help develop ADUs with the proviso that those ADUs be made available to lower income residents for a period of time to recoup the investment. So I believe in solutions, and we need to look outside the box and actually connect some of these agencies with other things that have been done. It's been a frustration for me as a council member, as a citizen, that we don't do a very good job at meshing funding sources, organizations, policy, code, to actually provide solutions. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anybody else for public comment on this item? Yeah, we look good.
I'll just offer some information. Kitsap Community Resources has financial awareness programs. Their public programs are well advertised, and they, they're very valuable. They actually get right down to helping folks with just your basic budgeting 101, all the way up to how somebody can prepare for, potentially weathering downturns in the economy and in their jobs they may have. I just wanted to share that with you, council. That type of program is offered.
Thank you. All right, is there anybody else for a public comment on this item? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. We will now go to the council for a motion. Oh, yeah, thank you. Councilmember Coughlin.
Thank you, Council President. I move to pass resolution number 3353, approving the 2023 funding recommendations to be included in the 2023 action plan to HUD, and authorize the mayor to finalize and execute the agency grant agreements with substantially the same terms and conditions as presented.
And do I have a second? We have a motion and a second. We are open for discussion. Councilmember Coughlin.
Well, thanks, Council President. Yeah, I'll just say, real quickly, as the council representative to the CDBG committee, I want to give a big thank you to Sarah Lyman for such a well-run process, especially being her first year running CDBG. I thought it was just extremely well run. So thank you to Ms. Lyman. And thanks so much to the community members for donating their time and being so thoughtful. I really liked how we did the process. We scored everything independently ahead of time. And then we had interviews with the applicants to get clarification of questions, and had great discussions taking into account impact, feasibility, timeliness of funds, and other factors. And it was reassuring to see that in general, when the dust settled, the projects that were independently top scored indeed were funded by consensus. The lowest scored, unfortunately, were not. And I thought we did a nice job of de-scoping what we could. For example, the curb ramp project. The full ask was a bit higher, but we were able to work with Public Works and de-scope it to ensure that one side of the street had continuous ADA accessibility, and that freed up some funds for other projects. So just in summary, I wish we had more funding, from HUD and in general for all these projects are so valuable to community. But I thought the committee was thoughtful and fair distributing the funds that we did have. So again, thank you all thank you again to Ms. Lyman for running this process.
Thank you. Vice President Chamberlain.
I'm excited to hear about the BEST program being funded, and appreciated the comments from Ms. Spencer about the way that it's improved. We talked about this last week. And as a alumni of the BEST program and now currently running my own business, I definitely benefited from that program. I look forward to supporting it as an alumni in the future with the improvements that they're making. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Seeing no further discussion, I call for the question.
Councilmember Fry,
Yes.
Coughlin,
Yes.
Dennehy,
Yes.
Mockler, Younger,
Yes.
Chamberlain, yes. Good now.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Next on the agenda is item 6D, public hearing on resolution number 3354, establishing the work schedule and public participation plan for the 2024 comprehensive plan, update and suspending comprehensive plan amendment applications in 2023. Our presenter tonight is Planning Manager Garrett Jackson.
Thank you, Council. With presentation, I'll proceed. Thank you. We are here tonight to discuss the comprehensive plan update resolution presented in your packet. Plan update is required by the Growth Management Act via the state. We plan in a coordinated regional way with the Puget Sound Regional Council. They produced a document called Vision 2050 that all of the counties in Puget Sound, King, Pierce, Snohomish, and Kitsap, we all adhere to this regional planning document, Vision 2050. It lays out the collective vision for our region and recognizes the fact that we can't plan for population increase in a vacuum. We are all interconnected. It then goes from the state with the Growth Management Act to from the Puget Sound Regional Council to Kitsap County with the Kitsap County Regional Coordinating Council. It's when all county jurisdictions then get together and also plan just within Kitsap County, which is then disseminated to Kitsap County jurisdictions, independent comprehensive plan updates, which tonight we will be discussing our public participation plan and our work schedule for our individual comprehensive plan updates. At population increases that I was referring to earlier, Bremerton is projected to have our population increase to 63,757 persons by the year 2044. That's a substantial increase of over 30% of our current population. So our comprehensive plan will focus on how we absorb those population numbers and where in the city we're planning for that growth to occur. The comprehensive plan update must be adopted by December of 2044, or excuse me, December of 2024. The goals or elements of the comprehensive plan that must be addressed range everywhere from property rights to the environment to housing. You'll find our public participation plan as Exhibit A in your packet through ordinance, or resolution rather. The Growth Management Act requires us to have early, continuous, and effective public participation, and that's what this plan is meant to do. Our landing place for our public participation for the comp plan update is our webpage, Bremerton2044.com. So on our webpage, you'll see things like our swag sticker. If you show up to a planning commission meeting or you see us at one of the public events at a table, you will get the opportunity to have one of these Bremerton comprehensive plan update stickers. It lists Bremerton2044.com, and it also provides the email address for how to submit a comment for Bremerton2044.com. And I see that council members are aware of this sticker. So this is for the general public as well. And we also have a promotional video available on the webpage that's also airing on BKAT. So we're going to play that for you now.
Do you live or work in the city of Bremerton? The city is currently updating our comprehensive plan, which is the strategic document the city will use to guide development for the next 20 years. If you have an interest in housing, economic development, the environment, or other issues facing the city, we would love to hear from you. Please visit our comprehensive plan webpage at Bremerton2044.com to learn about ways to participate, or email us your thoughts at the address shown. Thank you for helping us build a better Bremerton. Do you live or work in the city?
All right, thank you. And once again, all of this information and more is available at Bremerton2044.com as our primary landing page for learning more about the comp plan and how to participate. Okay, and as far as community events are concerned, we have been attending community events since July. The Bridge to Bridge, Bridging Bremerton event, Islander Fest, Blackberry Festival, the Net Fest, the 9/11 SOS event, and just recently, my coworkers Mario and Ratatouille attended the downtown trick or treat. We're also posting in physical locations located throughout the city. One at our offices at the Department of Community Development downtown. Two at the downtown library, the Kitsap Regional Library on Sylvan, the Sheridan Community Center off of Lebo, Olympic College Library, and the school district offices on Marion Avenue. We've also been in discussions with Marvin Williams Center, who has agreed to post our flyer there as well. And we're currently looking for a location in District 6. And we will be updating District 6. We already have one. District 7 will be adding a location. But this is a fluid as far as locations are concerned, and we will continue to add places as requested. Toward the end of October, we sent out a postcard to all of the site addresses and property owners, and it's for the city of Bremerton. This is a series of mailers that we'll be sending out throughout the comprehensive plan process. I think we'll have at least 3, where we will notify each individual site address and property owner how to participate in the process. Okay, and as seen in Exhibit B, this is our work schedule for the comp plan update. This lists individual planning commission and city council events, and lists where the individual comprehensive plan elements will be discussed over the next couple of years. This is a long process, concluding at the end of 2024. So this is our schedule that is subject to, as you see on the presentation here. If anyone in the audience has questions about the comprehensive plan update, my information is in this slide. And if you have a comment, what you like to see in Bremerton, what you don't like to see, things that you're concerned about, things that you appreciate, please send those comprehensive plan comments to complan@ci.bremerton.wa.us, which also appears up on the screen. The Planning Commission has provided their unanimous recommendation that the City Council approve this resolution of the participation program and work program. And I'm available for any questions you may have.
Thank you. The purpose of this public hearing is to accept public comment and for the council to take action following the discussion. The public hearing is open. Does any member of the public wish to comment on this item? We'll go online with Mr. Roy Runyon.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Again, speak up as best you can.
Right. One of the last slides in the presentation mentioned stakeholders. I'd like to see a list of stakeholders. One of the issues I have with stakeholders is oftentimes the stakeholders represent interests, and that's fine, developers or whomever, but it would be nice to actually share that list of stakeholders. And, my concern is that stakeholders tend to have an outscale influence on the process, partly because they participate, they may be able to financially send people to participate and influence the process. I think it's important to maintain a balance. But for transparency's sake, if we have a list of stakeholders locally for the city of Bremerton, I'd like to see who those people are. And also, will there be, I know the council will eventually vote on adopting or approving this in the city, so we have other opportunities to speak, but by that time, it's usually too late. So, in the venue for District 6, I saw a dot, but it didn't look like it was District 6. Can you tell me what the address for that venue is for? That's all I have. You can explain.
All right, thank you, Mr. Runyon. Does we have the address for District 6? I think it was on the slide.
It's the school district offices at 134 Marion Avenue.
That's District 5.
My apologies. I would have to get back to you. I apologize.
Okay, so you're trying to get at least distributed through all districts.
That's correct.
That's your goal. All right. So, All right, anybody else for public comment on this item? Seeing none, I close the public hearing. We will now go to council for a motion. Vice President Chamberlain.
Thank you, President Goodell. Move to pass resolution number 3354, establishing the comprehensive plan update work program, public participation plan, and suspending comprehensive plan amendment applications in 2023.
And do we have a second? Anna Mockler, second. Thank you. All right. We have a motion and a second. We are open for discussion. Vice President.
Thank you. Mr. Jackson, I like how you're trying to do the reach out for this comprehensive plan. And I'd like to know, and I can see where this is applied, but I'd like to hear your strategy for how you're applying, a racial equity lens to the gathering of this data, because we want to make sure that all voices in our city are heard.
Attended specifically the Islander Fest and 9/11 SOS event, specifically to attract minority populations, the awareness of the comprehensive plan update. We're still, posting at the Marvin Williams Center is also important for that effort. We're reaching out to the Kitsap County NAACP and hopes to get further coordination there. And we're working with specific community members on how to better roll out toward minority awareness of the comprehensive plan update. This morning, I had a meeting with Kayak on how to better implement our public participation strategy for minority populations and non-English speakers. So those are a couple of examples.
Thank you very much. And so I'm interested to find out, as when we're done with the gathering of the survey information, I would be interested, and I think I mentioned this before, I asked this before, but I'm always going to ask it. So just how the demographics play out, because what we know statistically about surveys is it tends to be more affluent, more white folks fill out the applications, fill out the surveys. And I appreciate your efforts to reach out to the community and continue that work so that BIPOC communities are included. Thank you.
Thank you. And if anybody has any suggestions, they'll reach out to to Garrett at DCB and let them know where to send. Councilmember Frye.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment that planning is connected to budgeting. And so in order to involve our community more in our budgeting, I really encourage you to get involved in our planning process. So much of our budget is based on the priorities established in the comprehensive plan, as well as different projects that come out of that. So as we budget, we look at our own priorities as council, but also that obviously that have come through the other planning processes.
Thank you. Any other comment or question? Oh, thanks. You're right in front of me, but Councilmember Coughlin.
Well, good. Just a real quick public thanks to you, Mr. Jackson, and to DCD for doing all this outreach. I love getting my postcard and my sticker and seeing Mario Ratatouille at the trick or treat event. So I know you're open to feedback as we go forward, but it seems like a great plan. Just thank you all for all the work.
Okay. Oh, Councilmember Mockler.
Thanks. Excellent presentation, Mr. Jackson. It would be helpful, I think, to many people to have it broken down into something very immediate, like, hey, you know that crosswalk that lets your kids go to school like safely? That's something that, came from the previous comp plan. And since I know you for a fluent speaker of plain language when released from the podium, I hope that more of those examples could be developed. Thank you very much for your presentation and for this whole plan.
Okay, seeing no further discussion, I call for the question.
Councilmember, Councilmember Coughlin,
Yes.
Benke,
Yes.
Mochler,
Yes.
Younger,
Yes.
Chamberlain,
Yes.
Fry,
Yes.
Goodnow.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
We're going to take a 5-minute break. All right. We'll be back in about 5 minutes.
Recording stopped.
All right. I'd like to see them do more in regards to putting this survey out. Sometimes I think I didn't see Juneteenth on that list as one of those places, but it's always frustrating when they say, "Oh yeah, we took it down to the Marvin Williams Center," as if all of us frequent the Marvin Williams Center. So I'll reach out and have a conversation with them and see what I can't do on the conduits end to promote and share this information out. Another demographic that is often missed and silent is the unhoused. And so if they are truly trying to get some feedback that is representative of our community, then they could actually just take the time and go and have conversations with folks. So I like to see that. I like to see that. Don't know if that's going to happen, but we can continue to advocate for it. Looks like City Council is having a conversation. I think that's Joe with the president there. Also, another good opportunity to have conversations with folks. Just try to zoom in there and see what I can see. Either that's Denise or Joe. Oh, no, Joe is sitting down, so Denise is there. So I appreciate Joe for attending in person, and of course, Christy being on the Zoom. Have to make our voices heard, and you can hear from some of the comments earlier. Man, the devil never takes a break. So you got to stay diligent and stay on it. Okay, let me send this response back here. Yeah, this is definitely a long night. 2 hours in, just taking a 5-minute break. But this is critical, right? This is the time now. I appreciate Mark's show. I think it was very timely. Tipping points and puzzle pieces. His frustration, his almost anger, if you will, at the malaise that some people have shown here in the city. If we don't fight, if we don't stick up for ourselves and advocate for ourselves and others, they're just going to push through what they push through, or they're not going to do what they don't do. So we have to hold them accountable and then support the decisions that they make that are in our favor, right? I think sometimes we, I know it gets tiresome. Sometimes we wonder if it's even worth it. And we've got other things that we got to deal with, bigger fish to fry, if you will. But, the two main speakers this evening in regards to public comment are tireless in their pursuit of what they want to see happen. And so we have to be just as tenacious, and we have it in us to do it. So we just need to do it. Not sure how much longer this is going to go. And again, one of the things that we can do is try to break it up and split it up, because one person can't be every event. But like Joe is physically at City Council, I'm covering it from this side. Christy's covering it from her side. Someone might go to a study session next week. Another person might go to the one after, and then just share that information out with the larger group. So that is what we can do to leverage our collective. Are we the people? Very interesting evening. What I do hope is that we can continue to capitalize off of the momentum that folks have started. Shout
All
out.
right, folks, we're gonna get ready
All right.
to get started.
All right.
Go ahead.
Recording in progress.
Okay, we're back in session from our break. City Clerk. All right, folks, if we could be quiet in the council chambers.
Item 6E, public on ordinance number 5463, amending chapter 3.78 of the Bremerton Municipal Code entitled Multifamily Property Tax Exemption. Our presenter is Planning Manager Garrett Jackson.
Welcome back.
Thank you much. Okay, and we are here to discuss the MFTE program update. All right, what is the MFTE, or multifamily tax exemption? It was first implemented by the city of Bremerton in 2006, and it incentivizes housing growth. It's permitted for RCW 8414 and is an exemption on ad valorem, or according to value, property tax. The land continues to be taxed, retail space, existing improvements. It is just the improved portion that you're exempt from property tax from. Okay, why make the changes now? In July of 2001, the state updated the MFTE program to include a new 20-year property tax exemption. So you would be exempt from property taxes for a period of 20 years if all of the housing you're creating is affordable. They added also a 12-year extension possibility if the 20% of those housing that's created is affordable. So, and the second portion of why are we making these changes now, and that's to codify existing administrative practices. Such as requiring first and last month's rent and moving expenses and 12 months notice if you're going to be removing somebody from existing housing. And that units offered as affordable must represent a fair and even distribution of unit types offered. So if your apartment complex offers studios and 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, that you offer a mix of those units as affordable, not just studios that are facing a brick wall on an alley, that you provide a mix of unit types. Those are the changes that we are recommending, and I'm available for questions.
Thank you. The purpose of this public hearing is to accept public comment and for the council to take action following discussion. Public hearing is open. Does any member of the public wish to comment on this item? We'll go to Zoom for Mr. Roy Runyon.
Well, I'm Yeah, I'm kind of concerned about this. You know, I was on the council when we created this family property tax exemption as a way to incentivize development of higher density housing, provide more housing overall, increase and improve the housing stock. My concern is with the 1 and 2. First of all, think about this. Who is selling these properties to these developers that are going to be putting these developments in? You know, why is it on the why does the onus fall on the developer to do this? You know, if they're low-income folks, I don't know for sure, but they may be renters, they may be, you know, a homeowner. So a low-income person who happens to own his or her home, maybe someone on fixed income or something, is the developer, the applicant, required to do these things specified in 2I and 2I and 2II? I mean, it's not clear. So that's a problem. There needs to be some more language there. I'm really concerned that you're overstepping and you're creating a disincentive. Who's done the analysis on the additional cost to a developer, which could really water down the impact of the incentive, the property ad valorem property tax abatement? I'd like to see that financial analysis. So, you know, short of those things, if those concerns haven't been addressed, then I think you should vote no, because this is not ready for prime time. This has not been fully vetted or thought out, from what I can tell. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Jackson.
So these are strategies that are already being implemented by DCP. There is a general requirement that doesn't come with specific language in the RCW. So we had to backfill those requirements with our own administrative practices. So we have been implementing this already and successfully. We haven't heard an outcry from the development community, which was heavily participating in the March workshops with the City Council. These were the portions of the proposed code from March that were able to reach seeing consensus in the community. And once again, these are already current administrative practices that have been implemented successfully.
Thank you. Is there any others? Anyone else? Yeah.
Narrative that we are not losing any tax money. And it's because the question has never been asked, and it was never a fiscal analysis of how much money we're taking away from not only our city of Bremerton tax rate, but you're also, by implementing this program and continuing it, you're taking away tax money from our schools, our libraries, police, fire, everybody. It's not just Bremerton. Last year alone, there was almost $900,000 in taxes that were not collected. And it was on their improvements. I mean, there's a market value up in the Bay Vista project, which is market rate housing, of over $41 million, you know, and they should have had a tax of $409,000+ this year. So we're pretending that this is for affordable and low income are being benefited by the 12 year, yet you're keeping the county AMI of I believe it's 78,000, instead of using Bremerton, which is more than 30% less, at 58,000 for the income level. So that means at 80% of AMI, this program that allows for 12 years of taxes is going to benefit somebody who's making $63,000 a year. I mean, that's just crazy. I mean, give away all the money you want for housing, for taxes to developers who have basically built luxury apartments. And it's crazy that somebody who can afford to pay $2,500 a month as Spyglass for a one-bedroom apartment is paying zero taxes, and yet I have a 652 square foot house built in 1937 that I'm paying over $2,000 a year in tax. You just can't give it away. They're gonna build anyway. The Navy raised how much money they're giving for housing, which the landlords then turned around and raised the rents again. So there might be more things being built, but you are forcing so many lower income families out. 40% of households in Bremerton make less than $40,000 a year. And this program is doing nothing to help them and everything to hurt them.
Thank you. Mr. Simpson.
Thank you, Council President. So, what's the cap, the percentage cap on the overall amount of properties in the city that are available for this program? Have we thought about a targeted percentage? Have we thought about setting this up so that we know basically how much we're giving away as an incentive to the developers to come in and build more housing stock? If there's a targeted percentage that we have, that might be a more feasible goal and easier to plan for and easier to cultivate. And as we get closer and closer to that percentage of the housing stock, that we taper off this exemption that we're giving. As has been pointed out earlier, these taxes do generate the funds that we use to provide for our firefighters and our cops and our public works departments, so that we can pave our streets and build the infrastructure that is necessary to ensure that this housing stock is put in place, that it can be supported. Just because we build more houses doesn't mean that we're not going to have to build more sewers, more water, increase the amount of electric capacity that we have, increase our all the different public utilities that have to go through and support those things. And if we do not set a limit on the percentage, then we're going to give away the farm, and we're going to give away the family farm. That's not what we need to do. We want to be compassionate about how we do this. But we can't give away the store.
Thank you. When I was on council, when I first came on council, well, right before this program, we didn't have really any multifamily housing built in the city. And I remember the first discussion I got to participate in, this program had started with one 12-year and one 8-year, 8 and 12. So I think it's the 8 that doesn't have to have the affordable housing component. I look at this as one tool in our toolbox where it's solving the housing issues and the homelessness issues. There is not, if we felt there was one silver bullet, I think we'd be all behind it. We have to do everything, and everyone's in a different place. And so I'm definitely hearing what's being said. It's just I don't know if DCD wants to talk about any housing numbers that have at least been created, but we were so far behind the curve with housing units in the city because there was nothing being added for very long. With that, it sure was. And I also know, I live in the city. There was a lot of what I would consider substandard housing. And we haven't removed that much stock that we have there. So I don't have a better answer, I guess. I think this is even my forum to to talk, but I think we're open to ideas on, what we could do, but, it would concern me, if you've got $10 to build a duplex, or actually that qualifies for quadplex, and there's an incentive to build it in one city and there's not an incentive to build it in the other city, you're right, the developers are going to build, but it's where they're going to build. That's why one of the things we can do is say, you know what, we're not collecting that money yet, so we're going to do a break. So, I don't know. I probably shouldn't have even launched into that, but we all care very much about the housing issues, and we're open to other suggestions. And we hear, to your point, Mr. Orlowski, we hear that point about the dollars, and they come back eventually. What we're really trying to do is just continue to fine tune this program so that we can, so we can help. But at any point, if it's get out of control, we can turn it on, and maybe we do want to look at some targets. But I would guess that when I hear the predictions from DCD of where we're supposed to be in 2040, not we're projected in 2044, yeah.
So, point of order, we need to close the public hearing and then turn it over to council for a motion, and then we have council discussion. Just kind of patiently waiting
Any
for
more
that to
public
happen.
comment? Thank you for that correction. So, from the top row. Okay, I am gonna, seeing no other comments, I will close the public hearing. I will go to council for a motion on a muffler.
Thank you. It's okay. All right, hold on, I'm just vamping here. There we go. Move to pass ordinance number 5463, amending chapter 3.78 EMC by adopting revisions to the multifamily property tax exemption as described in the ordinance.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. We are open for discussion. Councilmember Mockler.
Thank you. I just, I'd like to mention that when DCD brought this to council in March of this year, they were asking for 60% of average median income, which at that time was 94.1 and has now risen to 102.5 according to Fannie Mae. Is that accurate? Okay, so I'm looking at Fannie Mae now has Kitsap County as 102.5. So 60% of AMI was actually, in my opinion, a very sensible response to creating affordable housing. And council agreed on those provisions that are being put up as part of this ordinance today. So far, so good? Still accurate? Okay, good. We have such a small group of people here today, and it's not on the cards for us to start talking about going back to that 60% AMI today. Am I correct on that?
We have a full count.
Okay. But this would be a way to level the playing field slightly if council, since March, if a majority of council has come to think that 60% of AMI would be of some assistance to low and moderate income people, I would be very happy to discuss that at this time. And if not now, soon. I think Ms. Rebolowski's point about the $900,000 of tax income that we're losing every year is a valid point. And that is another thing I would like to sit down and let's really look at that figure. Many of us from time to time have called for an affordable housing summit. Perhaps the time to actually have that one is now. Thank you.
Councilmember Coughlin.
Well, thanks, Council President. Yeah, I just want to agree with you. I think everyone on this council values affordable housing. We all want to see prices come down. And I think we all want this town to stay affordable for those who work and live here. Like anybody wants any higher housing prices in the city. Going back to the RCW that created the MFTE, when you read the intent as was passed by the legislature, it makes it clear that the main thrust of it is to incentivize affordable housing. That it really was created for affordable housing. At least that was the legislature's intent back at the time. So like the items before us, as we said, I think we've seen really good consensus among the entire community. There's been a lot of input gathered. What's before us tonight. Responding to the comments on the 12-year, personally, I'm all for adjusting the median income to better match our city, applying that scaling factor from the median income of the county to match the city. I without a full analysis, but I think that's reasonable. However, the proposal that came before us, the mayor's proposal, was to adjust both that scaling factor and make another change that required all 20% of affordable units to be entirely low income instead of the current mix of middle and low income as it exists. So the only number analysis that was done on the effect of applying both those changes at once, I believe, is the one that I did back in the spring. Again, thanks to Ms. Revelowski for getting public data on one apartment where we had all the data available to do the analysis. And at least what I found was that when you made both those changes, basically the developer will be losing money, that there was no incentive for them to take the 12-year MFTE. And so I think both those changes at once would have totally killed the program. And we've only had 4 projects taking the 12-year MFTE as is. So my viewpoint is that by doing both those changes, it would have resulted in less affordable housing in the city. So for down the road, I would love to revisit just changing the median income scale, do another analysis and see if that pencils out. But that's, those are just my thoughts on why I couldn't support both of those changes to the 12-year MFTE. But yeah, let's get more data analysis and keep revisiting this. I think it's a good thing to revisit every other year or at least on a regular basis. Thanks all.
Councilmember Dennehy.
Thank you, President Goodnow. In addition to Councilmember Coughlin and Councilmember Goodnow, it's really stark data to receive that we're going to be receiving 1,000 people per year for the next 20 years that are going to need housing in our city. And that's just Bremerton, right? That's not the county. That's not, north of Del Way. There's going to be even more people coming in and needing housing in those areas. And so we need to use every single tool that is available to us to ensure that we are keeping up with demand. And right now we are not keeping up with demand. If you look at LA, if you look at DC, if you look at New York, if you look at Seattle, the reason that those areas are so expensive and only, people making very good livings are able to live there is because there isn't enough housing. And, I lived in Seattle since 2010 to 2017 until I moved out here, and I saw it happen. And it was because of really poorly informed policies that a lot of the NIMBY neighbors were wanting to put forward and political pundits who didn't really understand economics put forward. And so if we want to push more people into homelessness, if we want to push out families that are, on low incomes, what we need to do is do everything we can to not incentivize building. And I really believe that this program incentivizes not only folks to build, but to get a good portion of that in affordable housing. And I appreciate council for not getting rid of the 8-year MFTE as we move forward with this one. So I'm highly in favor.
Thank you. And we've had so many discussions on this NFTE issue. Am I squeaking too? What is going on? They're trying to figure it out. They'll figure it out. We'll try not to walk in front of the, I don't know why it's squeaking. We've had a lot of discussions on the MFTE issue, and I definitely was on the side of really loving the presentation that y'all first brought to us when you had the removal of the 8-year. And I love the way that you and Garrett Jackson, I love the way that you modified the low income to reflect what Bremerton's median income is and removing the Silverdale, component from it. So finding a way to make that more applicable to our community. I just love the original proposal. I'm in a tricky situation because I'm also on the finance committee, and we, as a finance committee, move forward with this recommendation that we have before us today. What I appreciate about this is that there is this placement put into place. It's a new one. We wanted to make sure that this got back on the agenda so that we could get this displacement for folks who are displaced by development. I am still looking for the research that more housing equals lower or stable rents. I'd love to see a study that proves that. And I have not yet to find one. And that's data, that's statistics. Developers do what developers do. They're there to make money, right? We do want more housing. I guess I'm not afraid of this housing being a little bit outside of Bremerton. Is that okay to say? If it's in the county, so be it. But at the same time, I just would have liked to see more consideration for any data and for this MFTE. That's all. Thanks.
I understand the basic principles of supply and demand. And there is a huge demand for housing right now, and we cannot meet that demand. When I look in my district, which of course is District 2, all along the corridor, that's where the density is coming. I mean, we're going to be building density along the corridor. Now, the county chose, did anybody else notice that the county chose north, right off of the 303, to put in 33 single family homes? But we are committed to density, and that means multifamily. I think I need to keep saying this. I find it offensive when we say that all that developers are in the game for is to make money. When I sit across from somebody like Wes Larson, who was born and raised in Bremerton and has an incredible vision that they're building all over the Pacific Northwest and winning all kinds of awards for it. When he sits there and tells me that he can't build, he wouldn't have been able to build the Evergreen complex without the 12-year MFTE. Those MFTEs make it work on paper. They're not just in it to make money, but they're not in it to lose money either. They're a business. Many of them are as mission driven as any of us are. And I want to get kind of into talking more about the real stuff of MFTE and not, casting each side, so to speak, as evil. I think we're all supportive of affordable housing. It's how we get there. And I don't think anybody solved it anywhere. But we're dealing with it. We're talking to you about it. We're trying to figure it out. And we're doing our best. Keep coming. Keep talking to us. But yeah, the MFTEs are a tool that I'm certainly not willing to cut at this point.
Councilmember Younger. Thank you. So the 8 and the 12-year original programs aren't really up to what we're voting on tonight. We're actually supplementing the existing MFTE ordinance to add three items to the toolbox to broaden the MFTE program. As far as I'm concerned, the debate on the merits of the 8 and the 12, the original, I'm not going to debate tonight because we've had that debate ad nauseum over the years with data from both sides and passionate arguments from both sides. So this is really to take the state law that was passed in 2021 and put it in our ordinance so we have another quote unquote tool in the toolbox. Having said that, I hate to rain on your parade, but there's nothing to build with those tools because of the cost of capital. And that's just our national economic condition. Google your cost of capital, and before when they showed us their numbers on how something when it pencil out in Bremerton versus Seattle, because your cost of construction is basically the same if you're on this side of the sound or the other side of the sound. The only difference is the cost of your land. And there's more money to be made in Seattle, so the developers where the business in. Anyway, I already promised I was going to get in. My point is with the cost of capital, this is great for maybe in the future down the road when interest rates may be lower. I don't know if we'll ever get to the unprecedented years that we experienced in the last 10 years with artificially low interest rates that allowed all this. I have my doubts. I'm old enough to have gone through a few economic cycles, and I don't see that ever happening again. So we're going to have to find other tools. This is nice. Let's add this to it. It's better than what we had. It does provide displacement assistance for those people. We do have projects that are in the loop that are in the MFT program. They do not have the occupancy permit, and so this will help. In the future, if we do end up having developments that are using MFTE, but right now I just don't see it happening. Thank
you. Quickly respond to Vice President Chamberlain's request. I'm going to send council a link to the Joint Center for Housing Studies at my alma mater, Harvard University. They do a really great job of breaking down housing affordability causes. And as we move forward, trying to figure out our housing affordability crisis, I think this is one of the gold standards for it. So check that out in your inbox later tonight.
All right, thank you. All right, so thank you for Councilmember Younger for again bringing us back. So we're really just looking at these three sort of tweaks to the existing program. I don't see any further discussion, and with that, I'll call for questions.
Councilmember Dennehy.
Yes.
Mockler,
Yes.
Younger,
Yes.
Chamberlain,
Yes.
Fry,
Yes.
Coughlin,
Yes.
Goodnow.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. This concludes public hearing. Our next item is general business item 7A, acceptance of the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee's 2023 funding recommendation. Our presenter is LTAC Chair, Councilmember Fry.
The Lodging Tax Advisory Committee received 13 requests totaling $456,000. Also received was a request from the Admiral Theater for a new renewal of the city's commitment of $60,000 for tourism promotion. We got directive from the City Council, including support of long-time community events, kickstarting new events, tourism-based organizations and venues still impacted by the pandemic, and municipal projects. Also, criteria provided by the City Council while evaluating the requests included economic impact, events or activities to draw tourists from 50 miles or more away, and applicants that demonstrate collaboration with other community organizations. Interviews were held on October 7th and 14th, followed by deliberations on October 21st. The LTAC, Lodging Tax Advisory Committee, is now presenting for the Council's consideration funding recommendations that include all 14 of the applicants with a total proposed allocation of $220,000. The funding also includes the continued commitment to the Kitsap Center for $250,000 and the Admiral Theater for $150,000 for a grand total of $620,000 for fiscal year 2023.
Member of the public wish to comment on this item?
I'm Brian Johnson, Executive Director of the Admiral Theater Foundation, and we're coming here tonight expecting the council to vote on the approval of the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee's recommendations, and I understand that may not be happening. But I wanted to, first of all, thank and acknowledge the Lodging Tax Committee for all the hours and thoughtful considerations that they've invested in this process. I'd also like to thank Council Member Denise Fry for her leadership on that committee. Just a reminder that Admiral Theater is owned by the city, or the city of Bremerton owns the Admiral Theater, and we're 32 years into a 50-year partnership that's been extremely successful and paid huge dividends for the city and, of course, the theater and the community. I just like to say we'll be prepared to handle this at a future meeting if that's necessary. But we appreciate your support for all these years, and we'll continue to ask for it. So thank you. And Commissioner Younger, the curtains, Jack Lenore Larson, I remember when those went in, and the artist that put those in 2004, I believe, and I think he was a Bremerton High School graduate. So anyway, thank you, Council.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Anybody else? Oh, Mr. Oblowski?
Well, I was around here when a proposal for the conference center came up and how it was going to be a big money maker for the city, and we subsidize it heavily. It's not a welcoming place at all. I mean, you're on the waterfront and you're in a room that's all closed in. How long are we expecting to heavily subsidize them? Is it ever going to end? I mean, I guess some people say that none of them make money, so then why do we build it? Why do we continue to support it? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Oblowski. And I think just to reply to your question, I think one of the things that when we've talked about, why do we subsidize the conference center? Well, many municipalities, I don't have the data on that, subsidize their conference center because it adds more to, more heads and beds, basically. It brings more into the city as far as economics. So that is the logical reason why most municipalities do that. Is there anybody else for public comment? Oh, I see quite a few. I'm going to go ahead and let Mr. Simpson go right ahead.
Thank you, Council Vice President. So I think more to Ms. Revelowski's point is that we're providing this $250,000 subsidy for it, and we're not increasing the rates. If we went ahead and, as Mr. Runyon stated earlier, actually increased rates slightly so that we didn't have to subsidize the operational costs of this facility, it wouldn't require us to continually put it out to make expenditures in our budget for it. We want these programs to continue. We want to have a conference center that is viable, that does attract the value added to our community. But we don't want it to be a continual burden. We want it to be solvent and pay for itself. That was the original intent behind it. And if that's not the case now, we should reevaluate the program. And our LTAC, the LTAC funding is great because it does do in a greater sense bring more dollars into our community. And that's the very nature of why we have it. The heads and beds that goes in. And it's supposed to bring great things in. I mean, the Admiral Theater is a fantastic example of that. And just kind of as a segue, you might want to mention why Council President has stepped out of the speech real quick, just so that everybody else knows. He's part of the Rock Theater, and that's another fantastic thing that we have here in our community. These things are things that bring more people into our community, do generate revenue for us. But the community this conference center, it tends to be an albatross for us, and we need to reevaluate that.
Thank you, Mr. Simpson. Ms. Fennell, would you like to add some clarifying information as to why a couple of our members are recusing themselves?
Absolutely, happy to do so. So, two of our council members have recused themselves from the discussion and vote on this item. That is Council President Goodnow, because he is the ex officio member of the Roxy Theater Foundation Board, and in his own capacity, he's also an employee of the Roxy Theater Foundation in the salary capacity. Councilmember Coughlin is the Vice President of the Kids History Museum Board and the Executive Director for the Kids History Museum, both of which are unpaid positions. So the interest that those members have in that case, they do their receiving themselves.
Thanks, Ms. Fennell. Okay, is there anybody else from the public in our audience who'd like to speak on this issue? Okay, next up we have from the Zoom audience, Roy Runyon.
Okay, well, yeah, as I spoke earlier about the $250,000 from the conference center, that needs to be looked at very carefully. I'm disappointed the packet does not include the analyses or the performance numbers that Ms. Fry referred to. I'm a numbers guy, and so, I mean, you can make numbers up. And, you know, if we have the numbers available, then we can look at the numbers. And you could vote on those and say, hey, this organization is being effective. This is bringing people into Bremerton. It's generating tax revenue for us. But, you know, with the packet the way it is and missing that data, I've got to raise a big question mark about this. You know, it kind of calls into question the legitimacy of this particular agenda item and the vote that's going to follow. I can't ask questions from a basis of knowledge now. I can't question the numbers. I am concerned about the conference center. You know, having been on the KPFD board, you know, we were able to generate more revenue, more money for capital improvements in partnership with the city, with the expectation that, you know, the conference center operator would step up, and they made promises to us that they would. Obviously, market conditions, COVID, that type of thing, that's unforeseen. Those black swan events we don't have control over. But so you folks need to ask more questions, and I would like to see in future the analyses of effectiveness and performance for all of these applicants that we're going to award money to. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Runyon. So the question was, and this is, I'm going to go ahead and defer to you, Councilmember Fry. The question was regarding performance analysis, and maybe you can even touch upon who was on the considering on the board when you discussed your.
Sure. I just want to point out, I can't hear them anywhere nearly adequately for me to feel like, you know, I'm comfortable hearing public testimony. So I might need some buds or something, Mr. Riley. But we got very good information at council around some evaluation measurements, and those came from the hoteliers. You know, by statute, the hotels, we have 2 representatives of hotels locally who sit on that committee. And I was pretty surprised. They sell out evidently for Blackberry or for Bridge Blast, sold out months in advance for that, usually 2 nights. Admiral Theater, you know, is a big pull for them. And then Blackberry Festival, maybe 10 rooms. And those are mostly vendors. So there's data that you can get from all different kinds of places, but I think the committee really depends on those hoteliers who can tell us what brings the people in to spend money in our hotels. Heads and beds, as they call them.
Thank you, Councilmember Fry. Next up, we have Jim McDonald. I'm sorry, let me stop. John Hanson was next.
Good evening. You hear me okay? I hope.
Yes, we can hear you. Go right ahead.
How's that?
Thank you. Sorry about that delayed response.
No, it's okay.
Thank
My
you.
bad. My name is John Hanson from Bremerton. I'm the president of Bremerton Historic Ship Association. That is the nonprofit that owns the USS Turner Joy in the Bremerton waterfront. I've served in that capacity for 9 years. I've been on the board for 14 years. The Lodging Tax Committee has met with us for many years and has been a big supporter of the Turner Joy and our organization. And again, tonight we're asking for some funding, which is a small percentage of our annual budget. And I want to lead with a thank you to the City Council and to the mayor over the years of support. I felt like tonight a lot of public comment was directed at all the negative and challenges, but in the truth, promoting something to promote our city, in our case, the Turner Joy, and getting the attendance to Bremerton is important to us. And also we talk about heads in beds. One of our focuses are reunions, weddings, memorials, and we put people in the hotels, and that was commented at the Lodging Tax Committee. Our annual membership and attendance runs about 40,000 people. That's been down 10 to 15% because of COVID last year. We're back to about 5 to 7% down this year. And I project we'll be back on track next year. Our marketing materials typically focus on 3 areas: digital, print media, and even television ads. This year, we've increased our television ads after the elections. You can see that they've been pretty much blanketed on television with election ads. So we're going to be hitting that pretty hard next week as we gear up to Veterans Day. We do bring a lot of tourists to Bremerton, and our example of our maps, we print 2 million of maps in 6 different languages that are distributed throughout the Pacific Northwest. We partner with 26 partners in the Pacific Northwest in Seattle region, for example, the Space Needle, Jubilee Garden and Glass, and some of the major attractions like the monorail. Locally, we partner with the Conference Center, the Bridge Blast, the Symphony, the Science Fair, the Chamber of Commerce, and we are a huge partner locally and regionally to bring tourists to Bremerton. Our focus is focusing on tourism to Bremerton. At the same time, we have other programs. We focus on education, which is STEM education, over 1,000 students a year, all funded by grants. So outside of lodging tax funds, we've received some federal and state funds to help us kind of limp out of our COVID losses. But these funds that you're going to vote on potentially tonight help us with these marketing programs that are an annual marketing program and also focused marketing program. And I want to make a quick comment on what we have coming up. Veterans Day is coming up November 11th. We're expecting several hundred visitors from the region. Pierce County's already booked over 400 people to come to tour the Turner Joy, and we'll put some of that money into Bremerton that day. That day will be free for veterans, so it'll be a popular day. We're giving away puppies in Remembrance Day.
And next up is Mr. McDonald. How's our IT doing? I see the screen's a little different.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for the opportunity. The first thing is, I do want to think that the Turner Joy does one of the better jobs of the people that receive the lodging tax fund. The second point is that people need to understand this isn't coming out of the general fund. This is actually coming from the taxes that are paid from people that are visiting our city and are staying in hotels. And regarding the 2 facilities the city owns, regarding the conference center, I don't think there's a city in the state that doesn't support their conference center with lodging tax funds. So when there's a conference, there's hundreds of people that come and fill up our hotels. But my most admiration goes to the Admiral Theater. They were the first group in town that started the revitalization. And the Admiral Theater does such an awesome job. And when there's a show in town, whether it's the hotels, but you can't get a restaurant reservation because the Admiral Theater is just an outstanding contributor to our town. So I appreciate the city still supporting the buildings that they own, the Conference Center and the Admiral, and I do think the Turner Joy is another well-deserved funding. The other ones I wouldn't mind seeing weaning off a little bit, but but I understand that the Lodging Tax Committee has done a hard job, and I appreciate their support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. Do we have anybody else for public comment on Zoom? Is there anybody else from the public that'd like to comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll, oh, I'm sorry, go right ahead. You can state your name when you get up to the mic, that'd be great.
Oh, thank you. My name is Nate Murphy. I'm the operations director for the Admiral Theater. And I just wanted to first say thank you to Mayor Wheeler, to the City Council and the LTAC committee for all the work that went into this year's process, and for our requested contract extension and the work that went into that. My comment that I wanted to make tonight is just about opportunity. So we have an opportunity here to continue to build on a successful 32-year partnership between the City of Bremerton and the Admiral Theater Foundation, a 501c3 nonprofit arts organization. The city-owned facility is a true gem, and we take our responsibility to operate and improve the Admiral seriously. As is the case with most of the downtown attractions and restaurants, the past few years have been especially difficult. And so I wanted to make this comment, you know, personally, my personal experience over the last 2 years too. We experienced a near 2-year shutdown, $2 million+ in lost revenue. And as we're reopening, we're looking at this tight labor market, cost increases on literally everything. The good news is we made it, we survived, we've reopened, and crowds are starting to return to live entertainment events. We just this last weekend had a full house for Lyle Lovett and John Hyatt. However, we estimate it's going to take a minimum of 3 years to overcome the effects of the pandemic on the foundation. As we celebrate our 80th anniversary this season and reflect on this 32-year successful partnership with the City of Bremerton, you know, we're now facing the very real possibility of losing essential funding for our marketing efforts at a time when we need it the most. Every season, we engage in strategic advertising, marketing, and partnership plans for activity both inside and outside the city and county. We consistently bring in patrons from 50+ miles away and have visitors every season who travel in from all over the Northwest, Western Canada, and across the US. We have an incredible opportunity to bring in more tourists, put more heads in beds, and capitalize on the major investment the Admiral Theater Foundation is making in bringing nationally touring concerts and live theater to Bremerton. Just in the last year alone, we have welcomed audiences traveling to see artists such as, and we'll give you a little rundown, this is just the last year, Marty Stewart, Postmodern Jukebox, Melissa Etheridge, Pink Martini, Joan Collins, I mean, the list goes on and on, right? Righteous Brothers, The Temptations, the Robert Cray Band, and we're about 1/3 of the way through our season. In 2023, well, I'll start just next week, November 11th, Jefferson Starship.
Mr. Murphy, you have so many acts that have come to the Admiral Theater that you have run out of time to tell us about all of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I close here just by saying that, and I wanted to give you guys a sneak peek that Amy Grant is actually going to make her only Western Washington tour stop at the Admiral in March. But I just want to let you know, I mean, we're constantly bringing in all of these events, right? Spending money in downtown Bremerton and throughout Kitsap. We have this incredible opportunity before us to continue the work that we started, continue to invest in our partnership, and allow everyone in downtown to continue to capitalize on this opportunity.
Thank
So
you.
I truly hope that you'll join us in that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you. Is there anybody else who has public comment? I see somebody else walking up.
I remember a while back, there was a vote to build a boardwalk going from Bremerton over to Evergreen. I don't know what happened. What caused it to fail? Maybe there wasn't enough opportunity, like perhaps incentives to add business into part of that boardwalk. Like if you look at LaConner, they got businesses that run right along that boardwalk, and the places are packed. All those restaurants and businesses, they get a lot of foot traffic down there. I don't know if there might be some way to leverage the boardwalk to create additional business. Another business is bike rentals, kayak rentals that might be able to be added to it, or other type of value added opportunities.
Mr. Richardson, was this specifically on the LTAC proposal we have in front of us today? Was your public comment specifically regarding LTAC that we have in front of us right now, the lodging tax?
Yeah, in a way, because they generate business for the lodging, that boardwalk, you get more foot traffic.
I remember that
people that
proposal
want to
before.
go there. They see activities that attract them to that business.
Let me let Councilmember Fry reply to you about the application process for LTAC so that we can get some clarity on that.
Well, it's my understanding that there are public projects such as a boardwalk that could apply if the city owns, if they have to be publicly owned. I do remember hearing about that boardwalk idea. I'm a proponent of anything that improves the shoreline as far as access. I see Director Nucky, who might have an answer to this question, coming up behind you. Can we call on Director Nucky?
And thank you, Mr. Richardson.
Yeah, so I was the project manager for the boardwalk project, and really what it came down to is overwater structures are very difficult to permit. Couldn't get permits. We were well on our way to get funding, couldn't get the permits. That's what happened.
Thank you, Director Nucky.
Thank you, Director Nucky.
Much more knowledgeable about the situation than I am.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else for public comment on this? Okay. I have Kiaha Long on the Zoom.
I just want to support the LTAC Commission and the Admiral Theater and what they've done to bring to the Pacific Northwest for Hawaiian events. And I wish to see that the funding go for them. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Long. Okay, so if we have no more for public comment, I'll go to the council for a motion. Councilmember Younger.
Move to amend the proposed LTAC funding award to the Admiral Theater and return the amended proposal to the LTAC committee for review and comment. Council will provide the LTAC committee with further direction after additional council deliberation.
Thank you. Do I have a second? We have a motion and a second, and we are now open for discussion. Councilmember Younger.
Okay, so I obviously need to explain the reason why I made this motion and not the one in the packet. First of all, for clarification, I am not saying reduce the amount to be allocated to the Admiral. I'm not saying that tonight. We brought this up in study session. Last week, we discussed the LTAC committee's recommendations for the first time. And having served on the LTAC commission, I think twice, I know at least once, going way back in time, I understand what an arduous process it is, and sometimes can be political. And but nevertheless, I find that the way the city implements it, it's a fair process, as fair as it can be. With 2 hotel
hoteliers and to recipients of the lodging tax money or potential recipients. And that's the way the state law is. That's just the way it is, and we're just playing by the rules. I have no question, I did not question last Wednesday the allocation. I wasn't on the committee. I am not questioning the committee's allocation amount tonight. The problem I have, and I believe the rest of the council members last study session at least nodded their heads, was that, let's go back. For years, and I go back to this issue when I was in council in 2001, this was an issue with the Admiral Theater. Not necessarily an issue, but there was a $90,000 allocation. Fast forward to 2013, again, I was on council. There was a addendum to the agreement, a contract, and Mr. Riley, correct me if I'm wrong in any of this, I'm going off memory, that put an additional $60,000 of funding to the Admiral in 5-year increments. So then it would be revisited in 2018. That coincided with the LTAC committee, and so it automatically got renewed. I forgot about that, that's the procedure that happened. Ideally, looking back, when the contract was awarded, the decision whether to renew the 5-year commitment should have been put a few months ahead of the LTAC process so the council could make a reasoned decision. Because think about it, from 2013 to 2018, you're going to have turnover in your city council. We have had an extremely dramatic turnover going from 2018 to 2022. So much so that when I looked at the packet last Wednesday and saw that, oh, by the way, by accepting the LTAC's recommendation, we're renewing it for another 5 years, I mentioned it, and my final council members said, basically, what? And so that tells me that, whoa, we need to step back for a second. This is an option. And so for the city council to make an informed decision whether to renew that option, we need to understand the contract, which I don't believe anyone on this current council has seen, and also understand the whole history of the Admiral Theater Foundation and its relationships with the city. Luckily, we have an auditor's report. I think the members of the Admiral Theater, at least Mr. Johnson, has seen that report that I asked to be shared with the entire council. So we have that to digest for, in my opinion, a fair and balanced report of the history of the Admiral, as far as I can tell. An excellent report. And so what this does is allows us a pause, if you will. Remember, this is 2023 funding. I know you like to have certainty, but I really do believe that this needs to be remanded back to the committee. The council in the interim needs to have a study session and look over that 5-year contract and decide, do we want to commit to that again? If the answer is yes, then we'll tell the committee, put it at $150,000. Maybe we'll even tell the committee to put a higher amount. At the minimum, you put it at a $90,000 because I believe that's our contractual obligation until 2040 or something like that. In the meantime, for all those other organizations that have applied and are listening tonight for their lodging tax, if you look in the packet, there's a dollar amount that's allocated to you. This sending it back to the lodging tax committee does not change any of those dollar amounts. So the council is not recommending changing any award amounts to any of those potential recipients. So that will come forward. The only question is, do we want to exercise the $60,000 option? And if it was the committee's decision solely based on this year, I would have said fine. But it's not the committee's decision to tell the council, renew it for the next 5 years. And when I mentioned that to Councilmember Fry, immediately she agreed with me. And I believe when it's her turn to speak, she will indicate the thoughts of the committee. So what I'm trying to say is, it's not Eric Younger trying to pull a fast one. I'm just interested in the process and making sure it's fair, and especially fair. Oh, there's my 3 minutes. And it's especially fair to my fellow council members who knew nothing about this contract. They may very well side for the Admiral in renewing it, and that's fine. But we need to sit down as a body and collectively make a decision on whether we want to exercise the contract.
Thank you, Councilmember Younger. And so I'm going to call on Denise Fry to speak next. Just to clarify, for those out there that don't know exactly what's going on, we have an LTAC proposal in front of us that automatically loops in a contract re-up with the Admiral Theater. And what Councilmember Younger would like us to do is, we have so many new members who have never seen this contract. He would like us to actually see it before approving it. And so, Councilmember Fry, would you like to speak?
Yeah, actually, the contracts were sent to me by the Admiral Theater, and I think that they were sent to city staff. So I assumed that they would go to council, but they are there. My understanding is that the 90 is for the building. It's for capital maintenance and making sure everything's going okay. And then that extra 60 was to support everything that goes on inside. Yes, there was a lot of question. I've got to back up though and say that as somebody who ran the Bremerton Chamber of Commerce for 3 years, I got really familiar with this LTAC, and there was a lot of conversation, backdoor conversation between applicants, right? And they'd look at the Admiral Theater and say, hey, how come they get all this, extra money? And I think it was because it wasn't really clear, if council didn't understand this contract, I don't think the applicants really understand what has been going on either. And I'm I have to be careful. I'm wearing my city council hat right now, not chair of LTAC, and I can separate that out. I think that the Admiral Theater is an economic engine for tourism in Bremerton, as is the conference center. You just don't see it because there's no windows. Somebody said earlier, there's no windows, but they bring in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people every year to Bremerton. So yes, Councilmember Younger, I said right away, yeah, that sounds good to me. The process, this is a contract. It's a contract with the city of Bremerton, and certainly a 5-year extension should be discussed with council. And I hope that study session would include, Mr. Johnson and Mr. Murphy from the Admiral, in case we have any questions that need to be answered at that time. That's it.
Thank you, Councilmember Fry. Are there any other council members who would like to make comments? Okay. Seeing no further discussion, I call for the question. Councilmember Moffett?
Thank you.
Yes.
Younger,
Yes.
Chamberlain,
Yes.
Fry,
Yes.
Dennehy.
Yes.
Motion carries 5 yeses, 2 abstentions.
Thank you. I think we need to go let our president know he can come back to the table now.
And this concludes general business.
Like that. Up next is council reports. Since this is the first council meeting of the month, we will start with District 1 Council Member Vice President Jennifer Chamberlain.
Thank you, President Goodnow. First of all, I have held off on replying to folks about the pledge, but boy, we're in person now, so I get to do that, I suppose. And usually people just drop off the Zoom by the end. But you know, I don't know if you have a record of how we voted as a council, but we are pretty united. And I just wanted to just make mention of that and show my gratitude to my fellow council members for the effort that we put in to reach consensus. And I think that the feeling is mutual. Thank you to the mayor for honoring my friend Patrick Haggerty, who passed away this week. And we should all be so lucky to live and die the way he did. And he was a screaming, self-proclaimed screaming Marxist bitch till the end. And so I just want to do him justice in honoring what he did as his life's work, which was social justice. He worked really hard back in the day for folks who, trans and living with AIDS and the BIPOC community. And so as we talk about and think about the DEI position and the decision that was made by REACT, I'd like to put some clarity into what was discussed, and I hope that I can do them justice by offering clarity for that. So at the REACT meeting, what they decided was not to endorse a DEI position currently. And that decision came as a result of a lack of evidence of community involvement, of community collaboration, and community input from the BIPOC community. And so being on this committee has been uncomfortable, to say the least, at times, but that's an uncomfortableness that I'm willing to have sitting with these issues. And it's uncomfortable, and sometimes, it can be really uncomfortable as a white person dealing with these issues, to sit in that and to hear feedback from other folks in BIPOC communities. And it feels that way because I haven't experienced that generational trauma that they have. It feels that way because it's new to me as a white person. And so the advice that has come out of this committee and others that I've talked to in the community is to involve the community more, because we need our community. We're nothing as elected officials without the community that elected us. And it's also our role, white person to white person, to do what we can to bring other voices and to amplify other voices and to be okay with being uncomfortable. I'm completely comfortable saying I've benefited from white privilege. I've made a lot of mistakes on this path, and I'm okay with sitting in an uncomfortable place and learning and growing and bringing others forward. So I just wanted to bring some clarity as to why that group decided to do what they've done. They do want a DEI, but what they don't want is for us as white people to continue to further harm the community. So it needs to be done right. It needs to be done with our people. And that's all that I'd like to share from my council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Fry.
I'm really pleased with the meeting tonight. There was a lot of great conversation. I like public hearings. Yeah, because I love engaging and hearing the different voices. I'm going to get positive here. Safe routes to school. If any of you saw the Kitsap Sun this morning, you saw a great article on safe routes to school and how it's going to impact District 2. I should have known, Mayor, that you went to View Ridge Elementary School. I can just picture him, can't you, Council? Just for a minute with a little beanie with the thing that goes around. But I love what's coming into District 2. And I just want to give a shout out to Public Works. I think that your relationship with the community and the back and forth that goes on results in better Bremerton. And I'm really proud of the direction that we're going with all those improvements to District 2. I also just want to give a shout out to the mayor. there were some of us that asked him to pull out. I actually challenged him. I said, give me an elevator speech about the money that we're spending on affordable housing, because there was this and there was that and there was this and there was that, but there wasn't money attached, and he had it all down, but I needed a cheat sheet, and you gave it to me tonight. And so I really want to say thank you, Mayor. Thanks for listening and following up on that.
Thank you. Councilmember Dennehy?
Thank you, Council President. I appreciate it. Yeah, I think I want to respond to a few comments that were made by public guests who've been in government before. I think there was opposition to a DEI manager because of state laws around hiring around people during regarding race or other protected classes. As somebody who's spent the last 7 years in compliance of making, my job being compliance for federal, state, and local civil rights laws, I just want the public to be clear that the DEI manager and the job description that the executive has written up in no way is pointing towards hiring somebody due to a protected class status in violation of the law. I don't think it would have gone through legal or the departments or the executive branch to that point. I think we're at a really interesting point in history and a very scary point in history where white supremacists, I'm just going to call white supremacy what it is, do a really good job of trying to turn institutions against themselves and muddy the progress that is being made. And so it's really concerning to me when we have folks that have historically been on one side of the issue kind of aligning with what I thought a committee was created for. That's really disheartening to me. And I just want to let I was not at the REACT meeting last night. I really wish I was now. But I'm interested to hear and listen to those community members. But at the same time, it's an advisory committee. And I think this DEI position is absolutely crucial. This is, again, the first step. We have to get funding, and then we do the search for the person, right? The mayor has already stated that he is willing to work with REACT in looking what that search looks like. So I really don't want egos or any sort of statements to really gum up the work, which is, it's really important to have somebody in this municipal government who is holding other departments accountable and accountable to community for race equity. So that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Councilmember Moffett. Did I skip Joe?
Yeah, that's okay.
All right. It's not actually, but Councilmember Coughlin.
All right, thanks, Council President. No slides tonight, but just a couple notes. I must say I'm really grateful to IT and everyone who's worked to get the hybrid setup going. I'm fighting a sore throat and cough, negative for COVID, but still a lot of fun to be sick, and I'm glad I can do it remote tonight to make sure none of you get sick as well. So thanks, and for all the public community out there, keep sending input on the process, volume levels or any difficulties you have. I know IT is dedicated to keep tuning the knobs and then getting it working flawless. So again, thank you to them for working hard at that. And I want to echo the thanks to Mayor and my fellow council members here and all of our dedicated city staff and especially community members for the great dialogue in the budget process. And just for folks to keep those comments coming. We have our study session next week. We'll dig into this as a council, and then we got another public hearing the following week. So there's still time to make changes. And then I kind of like that idea of district meetings ahead of the budget. It's definitely a lot of work. Staff don't have much extra time, and we do have this public process currently. But I think let's talk about that next year to see if we could maybe do a couple joint sessions and work that out. Last couple notes is, I mentioned 2 weeks ago, excuse me, at the last public meeting, I met with the Ferry Coalition a couple times, frustrations about not only one boat service, but especially just even with that one boat, we're at about 50% reliability, meaning only 50% of sailings actually arrive on time or happen at all. And then I got a head nod at last week's study session from council to write a resolution for the council's consideration to really push Washington State Ferries to reconsider their current plan, which has resulted in Bainbridge having 2 boats near 100% reliability and Bremerton with 1 boat and 50% reliability. So I'll have that ready for next week's study session. Last item, there's a reminder public meeting tomorrow night at 6 p.m. on Zoom. Check the city website on 6th Street. Staff's gonna be presenting a plan to improve bicycle and pedestrian facilities all the way along 6th Street from Washington to Callow. So I think that's districts 3, 4, and 5. So tune, and there's gonna be Q&A with staff. So if you got any questions, great time. Finally, thanks to everyone downtown, businesses, and all the groups that handed out candy. It was a really, really great turnout. I went with my husband and toddler. We had a blast. Great to see the city there as well. So thanks, Mr. Jackson, for having your folks out there talking to everybody. And that's it for my report. Thanks all.
It's really from the mud to the stars at Astra per Aspera. So I'm going to start in the mud and give the entire council the happy welcome news that I will not be bringing up pavement markings. Director Nucky will also be very happy to hear this. Unless WashDOT or the Federal Highway Administration or some higher authority yet comes up with an explanation that these will actually be good for pedestrian safety. That's an unanswerable argument. It's evidence. So, right? Everyone's happy about that. I would ask you though, please, as you're driving around Bremerton, to just look at the state of the roads. Just look at the state of the markings. Just get a feel for that, how that affects you as you move around in Bremerton. Okay, so that was the mud part. Pretty much in my district, same thing. People are being driven nuts by speeding, and there is no easy or effective fix that anyone has found. And off-leash dogs are still thronging around, and the Kitsap Humane is still stretched from Kingston to Gig Harbor and cannot deal with it. Otherwise, Lulu Haddon Park has begun its renovation. It's kind of sad because the playground is gone, the tool shed is gone, and the toilet is locked. But otherwise, we are very much looking forward to this eventual renovation. We centered last week at the Resiliency Summit, which was Christina Rourke of Kitsap Strong. It was interesting to listen to so many different people in the caring professions and in the fighting for justice professions. I still have another minute, President? Good. It was just fascinating to hear all of this, and I would go on longer, but I only have a minute. Jane Reblowski's quite right. The strangest architecture in the world. You put it on a waterfront and you build windowless rooms. Finally, I saw Medea at the Tracyton Movie House. And one great thing about seeing opera on HD is that you can see the orchestra. Right? You can like come down from above and see it. And when I was a kid and when I was a teenager, orchestras were 100% white men. Perhaps a harpist here and there would be a woman, a white woman, perhaps a flutist or a violin. Every conductor was male, and here's how they did their auditions. They would bring you over to their home, and you would play for them, and they would decide that you should be in the orchestra. You know why the orchestra looks like the United States now? It's because they stopped doing it that way. They just put up a screen. And I just really love that, the idea that we've always done it that way.
well, heck, you can do it this other way. And the music was gorgeous and it looked like us. That's it. Thank you. Happy Veterans Day coming up.
Councilmember Younger.
Okay, so speaking of, we always did something this way. Why not do it differently? So I listened to the public testimony and I heard their calls out for being able to have input on the budget sooner in the process. And that struck with me. And I think I have a solution. We don't have to decide it tonight, but I don't want to wait until next year because then we won't bring it up, much like other items. So I just want to put this in the back of your head. And Lori Smith is going to kill me. But I don't believe the having it at a district level is a good use of city time. So you think about it, for the council, we have the administration. One day we have all the general fund presented. So we have the finance department and the police and the fire and whatnot. And the next day we have public works and all their various divisions. I don't see why we can't, and normally this isn't a study session and there's no public comment. People are always welcome to listen and then come in with their questions or contact your council member beforehand and provide questions. But we could open this up, especially with Zoom environment. We could have the meeting down here. And the thing is that hopefully, and I'm certain this will be the case next year since we'll have a seasoned council, they'll be, let's have the presentations. Here's my proposal. Have the presentation. Let the council ask the questions first because they're going to have more knowledge about the city operation. And if they have questions, hopefully that'll help take care of some of the public's questions too. This is one of those situations where we don't necessarily put the public first. We take care of the council business, but then it'll open up to the public for their comments, thoughts, ideas, what they'd like to add to the budget. And then we soak that in, and on the third day, when the council meets for deliberation, we go back to our study session and say, oh, did you hear what Mr. Runyon said? Did you hear what Mr. Simpson said? Did you hear what Ms. Redlowski said? I like that idea, whatever, and we can, but at that point, it's like, okay, now it's council focus on that third day. Just, I don't need to hear it from you guys. Just think about that, and maybe we can agree on procedure for next year if the administration is open. So we're not asking for any more days, or we're probably asking for another hour or two time. So, more pizza. I don't know. And that's my thought. And am I getting the evil eye from you, Lori? Okay, good. So Lori likes it, so it's Lori approved. That's my report.
Thank you very much. I'm trying to think about what else we can do on that, and maybe even if there's a somewhat condensed, but maybe a little more detailed with the summary that we did tonight, an option for sort of like a citizens budget workshop or something like that, or at least they get presented in something in between the 3 days that we work on it and the 15 minutes of that was presented tonight. So I think there's something there, and we'll see. It's a lot for us to take in. I do think the mayor provides the budget to us, and so I do agree that we should have a first go at it before, so at least the citizens know what we're thinking, so we get feedback on either what was presented or what we thought. The other thing, I again want to thank the mayor and Jennifer for mentioning Pat Haggerty. So we've been friends here in the community too, and I think it's a great loss that you do this. And my thoughts about all this and his fans everywhere. Our next study session will be held here on the first floor meeting chambers next Wednesday, November 9th, beginning at 5 p.m. Council members will now meet for an executive session for 20 minutes to discuss risk of current or proposed action as allowed under RCW 42-30-110-1I. No action is anticipated. Back in 20 minutes.
right. They are going to come back and adjourn. So I think we will end it here. I know this was a long night, 5:30 to 9:06, and if we waited for them to come back, 9:30, which would be,
We're trying to send you a link to the executive session. So just hold pat. I'll let Michael know to hold for a minute.
Okay, excellent. Thanks. About to ask. I'll keep an eye out.
It should be coming from Hans or Zoom.
which would, it's a long night, right? That's 4 hours. They're going to come back. They're going to adjourn. But again, think about the people that were in the room. And as the second to last councilman, I'm horrible with names, spoke about Runyon, who was online, and Simpson, who was in the room, right? Folks often remember the last person to speak. He did call out Jane because Jane was there and spoke up quite a bit as well. So it is, again, critical to make your voices heard, as that is going to steer policy, right? And if there is no public will to make these changes and there isn't any support, they are going to give up, right? Because there's a lot of other fish to fry. So whether your issue is racial equity, advocating for the unhoused, sidewalks, whatever it is, affordable housing, folks are only going to fight so hard. And so they need the support of the masses to push forward and to apply pressure on their fellow council persons and also the mayor. So I just ask you to consider that. Let's take our victories where we have them and continue to strive forward. I missed React last night. I was interviewing the teenage volleyball girls to get their statement since the Sun did not, and nor did the investigator have that conversation. So that will air here shortly, and I will push that out. But in the meantime, I want to wish everyone a good night. Oh, I also wanted to say one more thing. I am looking at my device that shall not be named because it will begin to talk, and it is saying that it is 5 degrees above freezing. So it was just a week ago that we were experiencing what felt like 70 degrees, beautiful, beautiful sun, great weather. We're 5 degrees above freezing. And
I see it clicking now. Thanks a lot.
Unfortunately, this isn't cold enough to open up the severe weather shelter. But I've got my fireplace on behind me. Yeah, I've got my heat on in my bedroom. We have to keep pressing forward for the unhoused. $37 degrees. I'm Marwan Cameron. This is the